Good evening and welcome to a new season of 16 by 9. We hardly notice them when we're driving. Guardrails along the side of the highway. They're easy to overlook when they're doing their job. But when they don't work, some say the consequences can be deadly. As Sean O'Shea discovered, one particular guardrail that is used across Canada and the U.S. is being called a killer.
We're in the mountains and the radio was kind of in and out. And so I looked over to figure out the controls and we hit a guardrail.
I heard us hit and I felt the spin and I heard the noises. When we came to a stop and I looked up and there's, my leg with a bone sticking out of it.
I had Blaine's blood and matter from his leg all over the side of my face and he was screaming.
It's designed to be able to protect you. The one we hit, instead of doing what it was supposed to do, ended up hurting us much worse.
Blaine Markland and his girlfriend Cindy Martin were on vacation in New Hampshire. Blaine asked Cindy to marry him. She said yes. The next day, on their way to tell relatives, they hit a guardrail called the ET Plus, a guardrail made by a company called Trinity Industries, a popular brand, tens of thousands of which are on the roads across Canada and the U.S. The guardrail speared their car.
You could see it from behind the driver's side wheel. It kind of came in there and came all the way through my side, the compartment of the car, pulling the steering column and everything. And then the little gear shifter, I think, was here, and it came through that and sliced this way. This guardrail is completely inside. This is the driver's side, the front wheel of the car. It goes in behind the wheel, came all the way through the front of the car, pulled the steering column down into my lap, and then came even further into the car, across Blaine's, almost completely sliced through the car.
My leg was probably up against
You were
here,
pinned up in here.
based on the amount of blood and stuff that's up in that corner.
You can see they cut all the doors off the car and they cut the roof off to try to get me out.
I went through somewhere around 25 to 27 surgeries.
I have a 10-inch plate and a 5-inch plate, and I have about 16 screws holding my leg together. It hurt every day. I'm in constant pain, constant pain.
Cindy and Blaine are planning to sue Trinity. Their lawyers say the guardrail should have never gone into the car. Jeff Eller is a spokesperson for Trinity.
We feel awful. We don't want anybody to get hurt, ever. I don't think anybody who makes any highway safety product in the world wants anybody to get hurt. That's why we do what we do.
Is it safe?
Guardrails are designed to make a bad situation not as bad. People get hurt every day. People get hurt on our guardrails. They get hurt on our competitors' guardrails. It does not mean the product's defective.
In New Hampshire, where Cindy and Blaine's accident happened, transportation officials said the terminal coiled as designed, but eventually kinked. One state official 16 by 9 spoke with said speed could have been a factor, but there is not enough information to make any final conclusions. Josh Harmon is in the guardrail business and is a competitor of Trinity's. Trinity sued Josh, saying he copied their patent without permission.
And therein began a fight, right?
It began a fight, yes.
That lawsuit was settled confidentially, but it started Josh on a mission.
I decided just to start driving.
Years before Cindy and Blaine's accident, Josh Harmon had his doubts about Trinity's ET Plus guardrails. He went on a search to see how the guardrails were performing in the real world.
This has been 3 years of my life. I have did nothing but drive and document every accident that I come across. These aren't advertised. You have to just drive. I don't fly in a plane. Most of the time I always drive. And that purpose is to find these accidents. And I finally collected about a little over 100 accidents, somewhere around in there.
Accidents like the one Cindy and Blaine had with the ET Plus guardrail. Josh Harmon eventually investigated well over 100 accidents and took thousands of photos.
Tell me what happens when that guardrail goes wrong.
It could go through the car. It can go through the driver's door. It can go through the front grille. The head can shear completely off and up in the vehicle and roll it and eject the occupants.
Josh showed us how a guardrail is supposed to work.
So it's meant to disperse the impact.
And it is meant to disperse the energy of the errant vehicle, and that head will go all the way down. Each one of those posts are weakened. You can barely see the hole down here, see them? So those posts break away, allowing that head to go completely up through there.
Here's one way a guardrail is supposed to work. When a car hits the guardrail head, known as an end terminal, it's designed to move back along the guardrail, which curls away, absorbing the energy, slowing down the car. Years of investigation driving up and down those roads with a tape measure and a camera led Josh to a key revelation. Josh discovered Trinity changed the originally approved guardrail system without telling the government. He says that this made some of the guardrails dangerous.
This product was working pretty well, and then they decided to kind of change the secret sauce, right?
That is correct. They modified it secretly, and this was what was proven in court. They did it without ever notifying not one state, not one federal agency.
With what effect?
Absolutely fatalities. Men and women losing legs and limbs.
This is one of those terminals that Josh says will fail.
Absolutely, this will not work.
Trinity reduced the width of the channel from 5 inches to 4 inches. Josh says some of the 4-inch guardrails don't absorb a car's impact after a crash. Instead, they can lock up and seize.
Somebody hits that.
It'll lock up here or it'll lock up before.
The consequence of which is?
It could impel the car. It could upend the car, rolling it, ejecting the occupants. It could allow the car to hit that pier. There's multiple things. There's no control.
When Josh discovered that Trinity had modified their guardrail, he went to federal regulators. He alleged that Trinity secretly modified the guardrail and failed to tell the U.S. government. He took them to court and accused them of fraud. This time, he was suing Trinity. Steve Lawrence is Josh's lawyer. Lawrence says the modified ET Plus is narrower than the one that was approved by the U.S. federal government.
So this is the original ET Plus. It's got a 5-inch guide channel, both the top and the bottom. The guardrail goes through this channel, comes out through what's called an exit gap here and curls away from the vehicle. When you move to the modified ET Plus, you move to a 4-inch guide channel, and this simply stops functioning.
I stood up against them. It went to a court of law, and it was sounded very, very loud and clear. They committed fraud.
Josh Harmon counterfeit guardrails. He got caught, he went bankrupt, and he's using both the Canadian and the U.S. legal system to try to make his money back. He is a con man in whistleblower clothes.
But in October 2014, a U.S. federal jury delivered a bombshell verdict against the company. They said Josh was right. Although there was no decision about whether the guardrail was safe, Trinity was found to have acted fraudulently for failing to disclose the design change. Trinity was now on the hook for more than $660 million, and Harmon was entitled to a big chunk of that. And with the lawsuit, an explosive email came to light. The design change made to the ET Plus helped save the company just $2 a guardrail. Trinity disagrees with the decision and is appealing, arguing the omission was an administrative error. But Trinity also argued it was not required to disclose the change in the first place because it did not impact safety.
Let's talk about the why. So we looked at a email from Trinity. By making a change from 5 to 4-inch channel, we would save $2. That's $50,000 a year. He says, quote, "we'll save a few bucks." So what do you think when you read that?
Typical corporate greed.
Somebody died who was working really hard.
Mark DeSaulnier was shocked when he saw that email. DeSaulnier is a congressman for California who first heard about the ET Plus after an accident near his district.
A Bay Area football star is killed in a violent crash tonight. Experts.
So Darrell Blackman was a young man who went to Kansas State, I think, went to Berkeley High School, was a football player, was working like 3 jobs. He fell asleep and he ran into one of these guardrails.
Did Trinity make this change to save money?
Absolutely not. It was designed, it was to increase the efficiency of the ET Plus.
So when the Trinity official said, quote, "we would save $2," he's talking about money. Not a lot of money, but he's talking about saving money, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's relevant.
It's relevant at trial.
Again, you know, the trial is what it is. The verdict is what it is. And the appeal process will be what it is. There is no comparative evidence that shows the ET Plus doesn't perform as designed.
Yeah, they should go to jail, in my view, or at the least should be adjudicated for criminal negligence.
I get pissed off. Because they knew what they were doing. They shaved this inch off of this end terminal thing to save them some money. What if we had had the kids in the car with us? I'm not even sure I could survive thinking about that.
Next, should they be on roads in Canada?
What's it going to take to get this product off the road in Ontario?
It would take that there'd have to be something comes out that says that it's not working as intended.
Holding guardrails to the test.
Heavy trucks, pile drivers, and high-pressure bolt screws. It's repetitive labor that can be difficult and dangerous. Installing guardrails to keep people safe. Increasingly, though, critics say some guardrails are doing the opposite. Josh Harmon proved in court that one of the world's biggest guardrail makers changed their guardrail design and failed to disclose it. For Josh, the new design made the guardrail a killer.
The main goal is to get them off the road, and until that happens, I'm not going to be happy.
The company is on the hook for more than $660 million for failing to disclose a change to the guardrail design. And now the U.S. Justice Department is investigating.
They're continually failing. I mean, these are failing across the nation, across the world.
In Canada as well.
Canada, everywhere. People are dying and people are getting injured. And if something's not done, there'll be a lot more.
After Josh proved that the company changed the guardrail design, U.S. federal highway officials decided to do a review. As part of that, the guardrail would need to be crash tested. They were also collecting data to see how the ET Plus performed on the roads. But U.S. states and some provinces here didn't want to wait for new data and test results. Eventually, approximately 40 states, along with many Canadian provinces, said no new ET Pluses could be installed for now. But in Ontario, contractors could keep installing it.
But right now, we are not aware of any information here in Ontario that our systems are not working as designed.
Mark Ayton is with Ontario's Ministry of Transportation. He's a senior engineer responsible for road safety. He says Ontario didn't join the states and provinces that were moving to suspend the ET Plus.
We're aware of the allegations in the U.S. with several of the collisions down there, but the final reports are not out on those.
What's it going to take to get this product off the road in Ontario?
It would take that, there would have to be something comes out that says that it is involved in, it's not working as intended.
U.S. states say, we don't want this thing. Just about every major Canadian province says, we don't want this thing. But the province of Ontario says, no problem, you can install it on our roads.
Well, right now it's not being installed because it's not available, but it is still in our specs. When the legal matters are resolved in the U.S., they will resume shipping it again.
And presumably at that point, it'll be installed on roads here.
That's correct.
Even when some U.S. states were no longer putting up ET Pluses, they were still going up in Ontario. And that one behind Mark on this new stretch of road was put up earlier this year. Ontario also told us that after examining an 8-year period, no fatalities involving guardrail heads occurred.
What those 40 states have done, no one has said your product is not allowed on our highways. Not a state in the United States and not a province in Canada has said that. What they have all said is, we're going to wait and see.
Wait and see is generally taken when people are unsure about what's going on, right?
I think they want more data. I think that data is being collected.
Since we interviewed Jeff Eller and Mark Ayton, the U.S. regulator, known as the Federal Highway Administration, along with state officials, published more data. They concluded that there are vulnerabilities in other guardrails lining U.S. roads, not just the ET+. They also said there needed to be more rigorous testing and better installation. Critics like Sean Kane say the study did not go far enough, and relying on those U.S. regulators is dangerous.
They've enabled Trinity to continue to sell a product that has all the appearances of diminished safety compared to its predecessor.
Sean Kane runs a safety organization. He also works for accident victims who are suing Trinity. He says the ET+ is dangerous, and the U.S. government is just protecting Trinity.
In short, the Federal Highway Administration did nothing. They did absolutely nothing but look for ways to enable Trinity to continue on with this product as a qualified end terminal that could be used by the states, rather than investigate thoroughly what was really happening.
Part of that investigation meant conducting a series of 8 crash tests. For Trinity, the stakes couldn't be higher.
We would expect those tests to come out just fine because they were a suite of tests that were under perfect condition. I think, what's remarkable in these 8 tests, we get to test 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, everything's going just fine until test 8, the last one on the last day. And it was a bad day for Trinity.
The ET+ passes the first 7 tests. The guardrail rolls back away from the vehicle. There was one more test the guardrail needed to clear. For Trinity, passing that last test meant getting ever closer to that coveted stamp of approval from the U.S. government. This is test 8. The guardrail buckles, smashes the car, and by the Federal Highway Administration's own admission, the forces could shatter your leg bone. For Sean, that's a clear fail.
This is the infamous test. So you can see it starts to get into the guardrail. It's riding down. It's riding down. The posts are breaking here. This is the problem. Locks. Goes into the driver's door. The driver's door opens. That's a violent crash. See the deformation of that steering wheel. Look at how far the steering wheel is in conjunction to the dashboard. That's moving the entire steering wheel and the column over. That's a severe intrusion into the car. That's not a guardrail that's functioning properly. That's a fail.
But for the federal government, this was a pass. Cindy and Blaine say their crash was very similar to Test 8. To them, the government line makes no sense.
I went back in, they did 8 crash tests, and one of them failed. Guess what? 8, that means 8 failures to me. If one of your 8 fails, that means all of them are a fail. You don't get to make that decision. I get mad. I still get mad.
It just seems like the government's trying to cover their tail as well instead of get to the truth.
The 5-inch passed all test, the 4-inch passed all test, both products perform as designed. If you go look and read closely what the Federal Highway Administration's independent expert said, it performed as designed under the test. Don't equate a visual reference on test 8 to the real data that got collected by unbelievably qualified engineers, reviewed by different engineers at the Federal Highway Administration, and an independent professor of engineering who said within these standards, test 8 is a pass.
Wouldn't the safest thing be just to take it off the list?
I disagree with that because it hasn't been proven that it's not working. We waited to see what the crash tests did this past winter, and it passed all 8 tests. The reports are out there, and the system passed.
Good enough for you guys?
Yes, it is.
We asked the U.S. Federal Highway Administration about their decision. They defended the pass, saying the U.S. federal government, the crash test facility, and an independent expert agreed that Test 8, quote, met the applicable crash test criteria. Mark DeSaulnier, the congressman, says Ontario should not look to the Federal Highway Administration for reliable data.
The Federal Highway Administration is to not be trusted in this instance. To say that it passed every test and then continues to risk the public, including killing people, I just think that's surreal. I don't know how else to describe it.
This is serious. This isn't, don't believe any of the hype or the discrediting me. Go to the extreme that I've had to go to bring out the truth. It's sickening. Very.
Good evening and welcome to a new season of 16 by 9. We hardly notice them when we're driving. Guardrails along the side of the highway. They're easy to overlook when they're doing their job. But when they don't work, some say the consequences can be deadly. As Sean O'Shea discovered one particular guardrail that is used across Canada and the U.S.
Hampshire. Blaine asked Cindy to marry him. She said yes. The next day, on their way to tell relatives, they hit a guardrail called the ET+, a guardrail made by a company called Trinity Industries, a popular brand, tens of thousands of which are on the roads across Canada and the U.S. The guardrail speared their car.
You could see it from behind the driver's side wheel. It kind of came in there and came all the way through my side, the compartment of the car, pulling the steering column and everything. And then the little gear shifter, I think, was here, and it came through that and sliced this way. This guardrail is completely inside. This is the driver's side, the front wheel of the car.
Out of it.
I had Blaine's blood and matter from his leg all over the side of my face, and he was screaming.
It's designed to be able to protect you. The one we hit, instead of doing what it was supposed to do, ended up hurting us much worse.
Blaine Markland and his girlfriend Cindy Martin were on vacation in New Hampshire.
Is being called a killer.
We're in the mountains, and the radio was kind of in and out. And so I looked over to figure out the controls, and we hit a guardrail.
I heard us hit, and I felt the spin, and I heard the noises. When we came to a stop, and I looked up, and there's, my leg with a bone sticking out.